This video is the shooting of 12-year-old Tamir Rice. It's quick, but take a look at what happens. Tamir Rice is up there. He has a BB gun. He's walking around with a BB gun. Cop pulls up. 1, 2, bang. Tamir Rice is dead. That shooting shocks the conscience. There's a 12-year-old child that was out playing with a BB gun. The BB gun in the culture, or in the country with a culture of guns that is ensconced in guns, where there are like more guns than people, put that in perspective. And one of those people, children, was out walking around with a gun. The cop, utterly and entirely apparently terrified, didn't necessarily take the basic second to ensure that the situation was literally as hectic and as frenzied as he apparently thought it was, that was in his consciousness when he shot that and murdered that kid. That kid did not go home to his mom because, as you can see, that kid is dead. The latest expert to examine the death of 12-year-old Tamir Rice concluded that the Cleveland officer acted reasonably when he fired the fatal shot that killed the boy in November. Clean shoot. A report released Thursday by Cuyahoga County prosecutor Timothy McGinty found that Officer Timothy Leoman's decision to use deadly force against Rice, who was holding a pellet gun, was clearly, objectively reasonable. Clearly and objectively reasonable. Maximum justice on a 12-year-old. He didn't even take a moment to determine whether the situation required maximum justice. Nobody was out there. Him, his gun, and a child with a BB gun. Clearly, objectively reasonable shoot. That's what I'm used to when I see cop killings. The cop or the union come out and say, clean shoot. It was fair game. Cops kill over 1,000 people a year. From 2013 to 2019, 99% of those killings weren't charged, meaning the cop walks. He knows when he uses maximum justice that more likely than not, there will be people like Amy Klobuchar to give him a pass, or experts who are paid to turn around and put out something like this that says, clearly, objectively reasonable. That's what I'm used to. I'm used to cops, regardless of who they kill, how they kill, the situation to which they were killed, fair, clean shoot. Here's another one. Just to show that your white skin is not a protection. This is Officer Bologna. I like to call him Baloney. Baloney. Baloney flips out. He's a parody of himself. Take a look at this video. I'm Baloney! I'm Baloney! I'm Baloney! Yeah, get off me! Get off me! I'm taking you in! I'm taking you in! Baloney! Baloney! Officer Baloney. Officer Baloney charged that guy. Tried to anyway, with assault. The one that he hit in the head with his baton. Steel baton. After the prosecutor saw this, the prosecutor dropped the charges, sent him on his way, and charged Officer Bologna. Staff Inspector Bologna had to go for arraignment. Now, what's interesting here is the way he was treated as he went for arraignment. Hero! 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 They're treating you wrong. They're treating you wrong. Here's another one. This, and by the way, they doubled down. They made t-shirts. Bologna strong! Bologna strong! Bologna strong. They're treating you wrong, Officer Bologna. They're treating you wrong. Staff Inspector, I'm sorry, I keep calling him officer. They're treating you wrong, Staff Inspector Bologna. You're a hero. Don't let them get after you. Don't let them get after you. Fair enough. And here's one more. Just make my point. I do have a point in this. This is elderly gentleman walking to the cop. This cop is greatly annoyed because they are there to do a job at this point, and this guy's getting on his nerves. Maximum justice on a whim. Just went straight to it. Move! Yes, he's leaking because you pushed him when he was just walking to you. You could have for God's sake, I would have preferred you to arrest him. That's where I'm at. I would even prefer you to arrest him. Sir, turn around. We're taking you in. Walk around him. Don't do that. When these guys were charged, because they were charged, what do you think happened? 57 officers resigned from that unit. They stayed on the force, but they resigned from that unit. Oh, and after they resigned from that unit, as these guys walked out of the courtroom, heroes! Heroes! Don't let them denigrate you. Don't feel bad. You pushed a 75-year-old man to the ground. Unnecessary dispensation of force. Literally. That's not your job. Your job that you're paid for by taxpayers, like myself, is not to abuse the citizenry. You're given authority, you're given a gun, you're given a baton, you're given mace, you're given a shield, you're given a gun, you're given a stun gun, and you're given the legitimacy and permission of the state to dispense force and be the sole dispenser of force. Now, that requires a huge amount of responsibility, and that level of responsibility should have consequences when you flagrantly abuse it. That is flagrantly abusing it. It didn't stop. Heroes. Heroes. Don't let them treat you. Don't let them get you down. This is what I am used to when cops flagrantly abuse their authority. And by the way, just to make the point that much more clear, the guy who murdered Tamir Rice, he gets another job as a cop in a small Ohio village. Isn't that nice? That's quaint. That's quaint. Hey, anything on your resume that should be bothersome to prevent you from working here? I murdered a 12-year-old, but they said it was a clean shoot. Okay. You're hired. You're hired. That's what I am used to. Again, cops kill over 1,000 people a year, 99% no result and no charges. I am used to these type of murders, this type of flagrant abuse, and the cops and the union turning around and pretending like nothing took place. What about George Floyd? What about George Floyd? With everything that's been taking place around the world, I, for the most part, expected the same. The difference here, though, is you've had millions of people all across the world put a big spotlight on Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I have to wonder, just as a human being, what are those cops thinking? Have you ever thought about that? Like, that is a human being at night. When that cop is being an asshole to you, the cop stuff is not real. That's in his head. That's in your head. The reality of it is, that's one man talking to another person. And those people go home at night. They have wives that they may beat. They have people at home that they may, yell at and everything else. But not all of them, just by probability's sake, are going to be like that. And an interesting case, the Minneapolis Police Department, or at the very least members of that department, bucked this trend. And instead of them being okay with that murder and justifying that murder, they write a letter of contrition. Shocking, unfamiliar, and yet, there it is. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon. I am probably in the camp that think the overwhelming majority of cops are bad apples. Part and parcel to me thinking that is because if you give anybody unchecked authority, corruption, rot will fester. And this is one of those areas where we, for the most part, society anyway, turns a blind eye to. The spotlight that has been placed on the Minneapolis Police Department, and if we're being honest, policing in general, especially along with the videos that are released during the protests and the behavior of the cops during those protests, has brought the question about, hey, maybe cops do dispense force in ways that are untoward, especially towards people of a lower economic scale and particularly towards people of color. And the public, the American public, shockingly agreed with that. I'm shocked by that. You must understand, And that video and the inhumanity of that video changed minds. You don't get that often in America. You don't get that often. I would imagine that this puts immense pressure on the PD and the police department and on the police officers at that department. And again, to buck the trend of the way they responded when they murdered that child or murdered anybody else. Again, 1,000 murders a year, killings a year. In this case, that pressure has resulted in officers from that Minneapolis department coming out with a letter condemning Chauvin, but also contrition. And I'm going to read that letter because I want you to hear what they're saying and I want to respond to it. This is from CNN. Derek Chauvin failed as a human and stripped George Floyd of his dignity and life. This is not who we are, said the letter signed by 14 Minneapolis Police Department officers. We're not the union or the administration, the letter says. We stand ready to listen and to embrace calls for change, reform, and rebuilding, says the letter, which comes as a powerful police unions across the country are digging in and preparing for the once-in-a-generation showdown over policing. And new polls indicate that most Americans now acknowledge that African Americans are more likely to be mistreated and even killed by cops. I hope you get the gravity of that. This is a cop, several of them saying the public is no longer on our side on this. Fascinating. There are many more willing to sign, but the group opted to showcase people from across the PD as male, female, black, gay, straight, leader, frontline, etc. Internally, this is sending a message, says Paul Oudemont, the spokesperson for the officers who penned the letter. I appreciate this. Now, the question is, what am I to do with this? Meaning, for me to take the stance that the majority of cops are bad apples, and then I see this letter of contrition. Now, my stance is created by basically thousands of videos that I pretty much can point to if I spent the time to show officers being officers, cops being cops. Now, the question becomes, did all of this pressure and did all of this put emphasis on a problem that all of you honestly and legitimately realize that is associated with the way you do your jobs and the people who are around you that does your job with you? This is unfamiliar to me. So as I accept this, I don't entirely, if I'm being honest, don't know how to accept it. I guess my thing is, if at any moment you're doing your job and you're engaging somebody who is not the best version of themselves, for you to acknowledge with all of the pressure and everything else that's associated with it, that that is indeed a human being and that maximum justice may not be the thing to go to. Can you at least acknowledge just in your actions in this kind of experimental way of not murdering that person or killing that person or not even taking the option to kill that person? Maybe if you have a secondary option, maybe even if this is a clean shoot, if you have some other secondary thing that you can do that doesn't demand maximum justice so that person can go home that night. I get that there will be situations where it will be a clean shoot, but there are 1,000 killings by cops. And I know all of those aren't clean. And yet, all of those people walked, with the exception of, I guess, 1%. If this changes your behavior, fair enough. I think what happened is like with anything else. The people looked at what Derek Chauvin did, and they said to themselves, therefore go the grace of God, go I. Because that could have been me, because that is the way I do my job also. And I would have been one of those people standing there watching Chauvin do his job, thinking that him doing his job was perfectly fine. I would wager to you that Derek Chauvin woke up that morning, did that, and thought, this was just what I was doing. This is my job. I do this every day. And therein lies the problem. If that is indeed how you guys do your job, then that needs to be dealt with. And that is something that is fundamental to what all of these people are marching about when they were making the argument about defund the police. I accept this letter. I honestly do, as an act of contrition from these officers. I accept that you saw what took place and said, oh my God, I need to do something different. Or at the very least, the people who wrote the letter. Maybe not all of them agree with it, even though they signed on to it. Hell, maybe this letter is even there for the political reason of acknowledging that, oh my God, my job is just getting harder and all these people are watching me. We need to say, whatever the reason, it's still at least an acknowledgement that you fucked up over over and over again. You take away people's lives on a whim, and you don't have shit to say about it. So I accept and I appreciate this particular letter and some level of contrition. I wish the more departments did this. I wish that it didn't take millions of people marching all around the world so you can see the incorrectness and the vagary, the utter atrocity that takes place day to day across the United States without any level of accountability associated with it. How many deaths took place before Floyd? I think the shocking abomination here is that the Floyd death was one of 1,000. 999 others that nobody gave a shit about. People, I appreciate this. I don't want it to make it seem like I don't. Honestly, I do. But that needs to have change. And unfortunately, the police stations, the unions, all of these guys are going to dig in for a fight with the notion that we are not going to change anything. We did nothing wrong, and we, all across the United States, will fight any any attempt at change. So I accept this letter. Thank you. Get your brothers to get on board. Like, share, subscribe.